Good morning, Year 4. Welcome to Tuesday's reading session. I hope that yesterday lots of you managed to sign up for the Winter Reading Challenge on the Hampshire Library website. It's a really good thing to keep you reading at home, and hopefully you'll get a certificate in the post. So let us know if you managed to complete it. We'd love to hear. We're going to carry on looking at poetry in reading this week, but we're going to move on to a different poem, and it's a very different type of poem. This one's called Little Boat, Little Boat, and it's by Gabby Downey, and it's got some beautiful illustrations. So today we're going to focus on the structure of the poem, and the best way to focus on the structure is to actually read it. So I'm going to read it for you. I've got a slightly larger copy here. Okay. Little boat, where will you go as you float like a cork on the ebb and the flow? Here comes a gust and you're blown by the breeze, over fishes and tadpoles and under the trees. Past the ducks and their ducklings, 2 herons, a swan, you are carried away, sailing onwards and on. Little boat, oh what a trip! Watching kingfishers dive while the dragonflies dip. Passing houses where kids wave hello, from the edge of the riverbanks, where will you go? Little boat, sturdy and fast, with your tiller and rudder, 2 sails and a mast. Riverbanks broaden, how big is the sky? Over meadows and marshes still further you fly, until, oh, little boat, all at once you are free, for the riverbanks open, and here is the sea. So just take a minute to absorb that poem, and think about the things that you recognise from the poem that we looked at last week. What's similar? What's different? What things catch your eye? Because what you're going to do for me is you're going to perform the poem to somebody in your family. So have a bit of a practice at reading it aloud. The poem's attached in your resources today. And then you're going to read it out. And hopefully when you're reading it out, you'll be able to notice some features of the structure of the poem. So to remind us some really good techniques for reading the poem with expression, we're going to re-watch the Michael Rosen video, which some of us looked at last week. So have a watch at this and see if you can pick up some tips.
Hi, I'm Michael Rosen and I want to give you some tips on how to perform poems and stories. First thing to remember is that in poems and stories you've got different characters. So you want to show the people listening or looking at you that these characters are different. So you might need to have different voices or different ways of looking to fit those different characters. One character might be serious, the other one might be quite funny. So you've got to show those differences. In English, we're very good at showing difference in the way in which we speak. And some of that is to do with your tone of voice. So you could be quite loud or you could be quite quiet. You can be up high, you can be down low. And also we're very good at emphasising things. So sometimes you can say, it was a camera and it was looking at me. Now that's called emphasis. So you can really push on different words so that the audience gets the really important stuff. Now another thing we can do with language in performance is change the speed that we're talking at. So one moment I can talk really quickly and another moment I can speak really slowly. So when you look at the poem or the story you're doing, you want to think which bits are going to go quick, which bits are going to go really slowly. And of course, slowly what happens is that people lean forward. They're expecting something. So slowly is sometimes quite a good way to build tension, as well as when you're really quick and you're really scared. You can vary it. Now, of course, we think of language as all words, but really we make lots of noises, don't we, in speech? We go, yeah, oh, yeah. And sometimes we imitate the sound of things. Aeroplane came over, oh, there was a bird. So we got all these means of making noises, crash and bang, but also just with our mouths we can go, for example. So you can use noises when it shows in a story or a poem that there's something happened, you can imitate the sound of it. And the door closed. You can see that I use my hands all the time. What we have when we're performing is we've got our face, our hands and our whole body, so that when you want to say you were scared, you could show maybe you were scared with your hands and your body. I was a bit scared. Or excited, you see, or if you want to use your hands to show the rhythm. So if you want to say, I was walking down the road, you know, you can make your body and your hands and your face work with the rhythms of the poem or story. Now remember, if you want your audience to be interested, then you have to show that you're interested. You have to show that you're really enjoying it. Even if perhaps you're feeling a bit off, or you're a bit tired, or you're a bit bored, you've got to put all that to one side. You've got to show that you really care about this poem or story. So you've got to look enthusiastic, it's got to be in your eyes, and it's got to be in the way that you move, just as I've said. Maybe even just in the way that you're breathing. You've got to show that you care. Now, in poems and stories, quite often the sound repeats itself. Now, the most famous we know is rhyme. I do a little poem that goes down behind the dustbin. I met a dog called Jim. He didn't know me, and I didn't know him. Yes, it's a rhyme. Now, rhyme's very infectious. We like to use it. To be a bit careful when you're doing rhyme in your performance of poems. If you overdo it, you forget what the poem's all about. You have to get that just right. But in stories, quite often, it's repetition. Think fee, fi, fo, fum in Jack and the Beanstalk, or who's been eating my porridge. We quite often have repeating. So when you repeat, make sure that you make it slightly different each time, and then the audience starts listening. Why is it different? And it's different because it comes at a different moment in the story. Very important. Now, one of the things you have to do when you're performing is to forget that it's you doing it. I know that sounds daft, but you have to be prepared to give up what are called your inhibitions. That's the things that make you kind of fit in with everybody and be the same as everybody. Performing is, in a funny sort of way, making yourself different. So you have to be prepared to sometimes be silly. People have to look at you and think, oh, that's a bit crazy, that's a bit daft. You have to not worry what people might think of you. You have to not worry, you know, some people say to me, hey, Michael Rosen, you've got big ears. You see, and I go, yeah, I have got big ears. You've got to put all that to one side. When you're performing, you've got to use it. You might one moment go, what did he say? So you use the fact that people laugh maybe at my ears. That's the way you do. So you have to give up being kind of caring or nervous about yourself. Be silly. Just give it all out there. So what you have to do is just find a way to sort of lose yourself in the performance. Think that it's sort of not really you doing it, but as if somehow or other you're a puppet. So that's who you are. So you're there performing it. So when I'm performing, I'm not really Michael Rosen. I'm another kind of Michael Rosen who's doing the show. That'll help you when you're doing a poem. Think that you're maybe the poet, not you. You're maybe the person who's doing the narrating in a poem, you know, the person who says, this is what's going on. And you can do that with a story so that you pretend that you're not you. So everybody's looking at this other kind of a person. And then you can stop being self-conscious and worrying about who you are. The key thing is the performance.
Okay, hopefully Michael Rosen has given you a few ideas about performing the poem Little Boat, Little Boat. Now, I'm going to get you to pause the video in a moment and go away and perform the poem and practice. And if you want to, film it and send it to us. We'd love to see it. If you can't or you don't want to, that's absolutely fine, as long as you've had a go yourself. So, I want you to pause the video and come back to me when you've done it. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go, you've let your inhibitions go, and you've performed the poem and you've enjoyed it, I hope. Now you've performed the poem, what features of the poem did we notice, and what is the structure? Make a little list of the structure and things you've noticed about the poem. Okay, so things that I have come up with, and I'm going to just jot them up here while I talk you through them. So I've noticed that the poem is in verses, and that's the same as the poem that we looked at last week, A River. It's set out in verses, isn't it? Did anybody else spot anything else? Okay, hopefully some of you said we asked rhetorical questions. Okay, so rhetorical, it's always a tricky one to spell, I think. Rhetorical questions. Can you spot the rhetorical questions? Well done to those of you who've got them here. We've got where will you go? And that is repeated. Okay. Little boat, where will you go? As you float like a cork on the ebb and the flow. Here comes a gust and you're blown by the breeze, over fishes and tadpoles and under the breeze. Past the ducks and their ducklings, 2 herons, a swan, you are carried away, sailing onwards and on. Little boat, oh what a trip. So what's the phrase that's repeated there? Well done. We have got some repetition in little boat, and it's repeated 3 times throughout the poem. Okay, and you heard Michael Rosen talk about how it's in different stages in the poem, so you can say it differently, and I wonder if you did when you performed it. Okay, what else have we noticed? Did anybody spot any rhyming? Okay, we have got rhyming, and we've got go. Ooh, trying to use a different colour there, it didn't work, did it? We've got go, and we've got flow, and we've got breeze, and we've got trees. We've got swan and on. So can anybody tell me what that rhyming pattern is? Well, let's have a look. We've got A, B, C, B. It is the same rhyming pattern that we had in the poem A River, but it has a very, very different feel about it, doesn't it? So we've got very similar structure, very similar features, but a very different type of poem. Okay. So when you come back tomorrow, we're going to look further and we're going to do a bit of retrieval from the poem, looking at more detail in the verses. So thank you for your performances today, and I will speak to you tomorrow. Bye.